Now, usually I am not a carrier pilot. I mostly fly dreadnoughts, battleships, battlecruisers, and cruisers. However, this is one of the most unique ships in the game right now. It is the only combat capital that is allowed to enter HiSec. It is also a faction carrier that is belonging to the CONCORD police force. And perhaps this ship has the potential to get me to fly carriers. Now, I don't have good carrier skills, but my dreadnought skills are pretty good. My battleship skills are also really good, and I have the best skills for cruisers. But again, this little boat might convince me to finally skill into the carriers. The physical aspects or the aesthetics of this ship are quite unique as well. It basically looks like an aircraft carrier that we have in the real world, and I know that does look a little bit weird, but I've heard that they might change the appearance of this ship down the road. Now, when I decided to check out the ship trait description, I found out that there isn't really that shortcuts on this little window here, which is a little bit weird. The shortcut is missing. Most of the ships have them, but for some reason it is missing on this little boats. And yeah, besides that, the other thing that is missing are my skills. Again, I don't really have good carrier skills, or in this case, I basically almost have none of them, but I'll be working to improve them. So, for 100% and this link activation time, jump drive available, plus 10% warp speed, can fit command bursts. This is the roll bonus, by the way. It has a very interesting roll bonus. Plus 100% bonus to command burst effective range, can install fighter rigs, can fit carrier command enhanced modules. Okay, that's going to be very interesting. Plus 25% turret damage and plus 25% missile torpedo damage. Advanced light fighter operation will give you plus 10% light fighter damage, plus 5% light fighter flight velocity, which is very nice. Advanced carrier commands will give you plus 5% shield boost amount, plus 5% shield volume. Advanced remote shields will give you plus 4% shield command burst strength and plus 4% skirmish command burst strength. Max jump range 3.5 light years, 0 second is the warm-up timer. 95% capacitor need, 563,000 hit points is the overall defense, 102 meter per second is the speed, 1.5 AU per second is the warp speed, decent power grid, decent capacitor. Fuel capacity is also really good. Cargo hold capacity is quite low, which is common with the other capitals. The signature radius, or the source radius, is 2 kilometers. The ship costs 44 billion on average. Now the price is, quotation marks on this, a little bit cheap. Since this is a faction carrier, once they become a lot more rare, once the boxes go away, the price on this thing will go up by a huge margin. So if you have these ships, keep them safe, because at one point they will be very, very valuable down the road. Now you can fit the main turrets, you can fit the high angle turrets on this ship. However, most players have told me that these things have some power grid issues, and you can fit only 2 main turrets. That's what I've been told, but my skills are again not the best, obviously, so perhaps I am missing on some power grids. When I get access to this ship on the test server, I will go wild with the builds and with the rigs. So it's going to be fun to compare this ship to the other carriers. I'll actually fight the other carriers with this ship just to see how it will perform. You can fit missiles, you can fit basically any weapon system in the high slots that you like. After all, most of the DPS for this little boat comes from the fighters. This is a carrier after all, and carriers have a very nice bonus on the fighters. So we can again use basically any weapon system that you like. Since I'll be flying this in high sec, I will probably use the large missile launchers because the capital ones will not apply a lot of damage to the smaller targets. Now I have the centralized command carrier enhanced module. That's a long name, I have to admit. This works in a very similar way to the carrier defense module that's found on the other faction carriers. Since this is a faction carrier, it does have its own unique module. There's two of them. I have only one of the modules currently available because they are quite expensive and my wallet is a little bit dry. I blame the Revelation for eating up all my wallets. If you watched the last video, you probably know what I'm talking about. Now, this is a classic carrier tank build. Full tank, full adaptives, dual batteries and dual boosters. No nanocore for this ship at the moment, but you can bet that they'll add some nanocores down the road. But for now, there is no nanocore for this ship. You can fit command burst modules in the medium slots. Now, as for the rigs, if you want maximum DPS, triple fighter burst Arator rigs, you can also combine the rigs into integrations. The integrations work really well with fighters, with drones, and with missiles, but it does cost a bit. However, it does combine all of these stats, and it should perform really well. If you like tank, you can go with a full-on brick tank with integrations, and of course, you don't have to go with integrations. You also can go with the classic single rigs. One anti-EM, one anti-thermal reinforcer. And for the third rig, you can improve the capacitor usage of the booster, basically reduce the capacitor usage. You can improve the shield volume, or you can improve the shield booster performance. Now, I don't really know what rigs I'll use on this thing. I'm still kind of debating between tank and DPS, so I'll update you on that when I actually figure out what I'll place on it. And in the engineering rigs, capacitor rigs, that's basically what I will put on this cute little carrier. Cute little carrier. I don't know why I call the ships cute lately, but I'm not really sure what's happening there. But in any case, a joke aside, I mentioned about the command burst modules. So you can fit the shield command burst, which will enhance your teammates' shield performance. Will give you some very nice resistance, and it will improve the shield booster as well. So very nice to have, but not really necessary in some cases. However, I like to take advantage of the ship's stats to the fullest, and you can technically use the skirmish command, although I don't see much use for it solo, since this carrier has a very long range with fighters, but in some cases it might be a very nice and a very interesting option to have. Now, you always have to bring some fuel, because the special modes and the skirmish modules use fuel, so make sure that you always have enough fuel to operate this ship. So, let me undock. I'm currently in Yita, so there's a good chance that you might see the ship when I was recording this. So, let me stop the ship in its tracks, let me group up the modules. Now, the carriers can be quite messy in terms of the module list, because you have so many modules, and I like to have them combined. I like to have them aligned in such a way that it looks nice. I don't know, maybe it triggers my OCD. I like to have things aligned properly, especially when it comes to the modules, so that I have basically easy access to all of them without thinking where I put a module, the first page or the second page. I wish that they would expand the modules. This is the network sensor mode, basically a classic mode for all carriers. It does improve your lock-on time, but you can't warp. And you also have the the reactivation delay that you have to keep an eye on, because you don't want to be caught in the cooldown. Very easy to lose this ship. 1.2 million hit points, 77, 77, 83 and 86. Honestly, because I have no rigs on it currently installed, that's pretty good. That's pretty chunky, and overall, as expected, from literally 8 low slots, you can make this ship be fairly decently tanked, and it's also not that slow. I mean, it's a carrier. They're capital ships. They're not really fast. The only fast carrier that I can say that is fast is the Vazagot, which is the Angel carrier, and that's to be expected. Angels are, after all, speedy boats. And in this case, this is literally a boat. Like, I mean, look at it. It can literally float. If you would to drop this thing in the water, it would float like a normal ship. And when you think about it, that's kind of funny. Now, besides this build, I bought some of the carrier DPS modules and speed modules. You can also sacrifice one battery for a damage roll. You can also sacrifice one reactive for a damage roll, or one adaptive. You have a lot of options on this ship in terms of where to put the damage roll. It will mostly depend on the situation, also depend on the type of build you want, but the damage roll nowadays is a very useful thing to have, especially with all of the crazy high DPS implants running around. Having a damage roll is definitely going to be very, very nice, and I believe very helpful. Most of my PvP ships now have a damage roll, including the tanky ones. I basically don't leave the station without a damage roll. 3.9 million hit points, pretty good. 93, 93, 95 and 96%. This is without any rigs for tank, by the way, so I can't really complain about the tank. It's a very tanky little ship, and I like it. You know, surprisingly, this is a pretty decent ship so far. Unironically, I like how the stats work. Now, let me do something else with the build. So, usually when I build my previous carriers, I like to add a bit more speed, bit more DPS, and this is also one of the ways. This is a high sec only PvE build, by the way. That was shown there. I'll be using it in this video. It should run very well, and again, will be quite hilarious to see the DPS that I can get with this thing without basically any skills for it, which again proves that you can technically use this ship almost without skills, but I never recommend that you fly ships without skills. Always have the skills for the ship that you want to fly. Well, this is also one interesting little build that gives you tank. It does give you some fighter velocity, fighter speed, fighter flight velocity, and it also gives you some DPS. Now, of course, if you have skills for carriers, if you are specialized in carriers, your DPS will be much, much higher than my DPS. And if you have the more expensive fighters, your DPS will be vastly higher than what I show you here. So you can expect about 15,000 DPS easily on this ship if you have proper skills and if you have basically the more expensive fighters. And I can say that's pretty good DPS and also pretty good tank. Happy with the result, and the extra. The special mode also gives you some resistance, which is again very nice to have. You should always have one of these special modules for these ships, because you know they give you some extra stats, extra tank, extra DPS, and every bit of extra is always nice. Now let me do something different. Of course, be careful what modules you put. Some of the drone modules look very similar to the fighter module, and yeah, you have to be careful not to add the drone module on this, because drone modules, drone damage amplifiers will not work on fighters. One very important thing to note: don't mix the drone stuff with the fighter stuff. They are not compatible. They don't work. It's basically going to be a wasted low slot. Always pick the fighter stuff, because the fighter stuff works on fighters, the drone stuff works on drones. So this is also one build that kind of combines tank and DPS and speed. Now, I believe for most pilots, I don't think that most pilots will do a build like this, because most of you will probably fly this ship in high sec. So this ship with this build will most likely be used in null sec. Although in null sec, if you have a safe pocket, you will probably go with full DPS. But you know, just to cover a lot of builds, I will show you some of the ideas that I have. Now I will live stream flying this ship next Friday. So if you are interested to see this ship live, then feel free to join. And I'll be basically running around in high sec, running the laboratory missions, hopefully, if I get lucky. So if you want to loot the racks, and if you want to loot the boxes, feel free to scan me down, and feel free to loot. I don't mind to help you guys at
Docking request
at
accepted.
looting the racks. Might actually help players who do loot missions for ESC. Actually, a very interesting profession in the game right now. That is quite new because of the new salvaging ships that are available. And you can do something like this: dual damage mods, dual microwave mods, one battery, dual boosters, and one adaptive. However, I have to admit, one of my favorite builds so far on this ship is the full DPS build. For some reason, this thing was so relaxing to fly, and I don't know what it is about this ship. I don't know why they did something very interesting with this thing. I don't really like the boxes. I really don't like the boxes. They should not be in the game, but you know, they'll be away in the next week, so it's not going to be a problem in the longer run. But for some reason, when I flew this thing, I really had enjoyed flying it. Like I'm telling you things that will happen because you know, I already recorded the video, so I can just voice it. But I really enjoyed flying this. I'm not really sure why, but for some reason this boat became very relaxing, and might actually make me decide to go and skill into carriers. Will take a while, but I'll get there because of this boat. It's honestly really relaxing to fly. Now let's take a look at the maximum DPS. Well, your DPS with this build will of course be much higher because you probably will have much better carrier skills than I have right now. But you know, for my pretty bad skills, this is actually some good DPS. I really cannot complain about this DPS. 6.9 thousand DPS. I'm not going to complain about this DPS with my current horrible skills that I have on this for the carriers. So that's kind of prove what I said before. Even if you don't have skills, you can still get some pretty decent DPS out of this thing, which you know might help you at clearing out the high sec missions. I wouldn't be flying this in low sec. I already seen a lot of them die in low sec by a lot of ships. If you get spotted in this ship in low sec, you will be jumped by a big fleet. So avoid flying this in low sec unless you have a fleet on your own. And the build that I'll be using in PvE today will be this one: quad damage amplifiers and dual mic cooperative guides, one capacitor battery, and one booster. This is more than enough for high sec. In some cases, I would actually say go with 5 damage mods, just for that extra DPS, since the damage mods are active modules. They basically work all the time. They don't have a basically they don't work in the same way other damage mods work, so that makes them kinda unique. They give you literally stable DPS, which makes carriers a very nice option for PvE. Now, my tradition with most ships when I test them out is to throw them at a laboratory. And I got a laboratory in high sec, and I'll be running a laboratory mission in this boat on the live server. This is not the test server, this is the live server. I mean, I think you guys already guessed that. There is the fleet chat going on, there is, you know, everything going on. My skills are not all up 5, so obviously not the test server, since I already told you I don't have any good carrier skills. I have good dreadnought skills, good sub-capital skills for a lot of ships, but for carriers I was never really interested in them up until I jumped in this boat. And this boat will probably make me get skills for carriers, because again, there is something very relaxing and fun about flying this thing that is definitely worth checking out. So, I warped at 100. I'm definitely not going to warp at 0 with no skills on a laboratory. That's common sense. So I warped at 100. I aligned myself towards a station. I entered the networking mode, and well, I started blasting all of these ships. Now it clears them fast. I expected my fighters to be a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow, but no. They actually do a fair amount of damage. Now my high-sec missiles are medium range, short range missiles, basically rapid missiles, so they will obviously not have 100 kilometer range. But if you plan to run laboratories, you can easily run the cruise missiles. I mean, any DPS, any extra DPS is going to be enough. You know, just to take advantage of the high slots, since you already can fit turrets on it. This is the only carrier that has high slots, by the way, currently in the game. Probably they'll buff other carriers to have high slots at one point, I believe, but currently this is the only carrier that can fit main turrets. Only carrier that has high slots, and the only carrier that can fit the turrets in the high slots or missiles, which, you know, does make this ship even more unique. Now you might be looking at the market and thinking, well, this is still quite expensive, and I will say yes, it is quite expensive. I mean, it is a capital ship, and capitals go for around 15 to about 35 to 45 billion. The faction capitals are about 50 to 150 billion. This one is 30, 40 billion, 44 billion average. However, you have to keep in mind that the boxes currently keep the ship, quotation marks on this, cheaper. Since this is a faction carrier that can enter high sec, that alone will raise the price on this thing quite a bit, because a lot of players want to be able to run high sec missions with carriers. And you know, at first, and I still kind of think that it is a bit weird to have a carrier in high sec. I mean, this is literally in the whole history of EVE, like one of the only carriers that entered high sec in a normal manner. I mean, I know that there was the avatar in Yita that got yeeted, basically. No pun intended, by the way. Very soon, that was on the 20-year anniversary of EVE, and this is not EVE Online, but a form of EVE, and we have this carrier. Now, this ship is by any means not perfect. It has its flaws. First flaw is its IP price. It's 158 billion. You definitely do not want to lose this. It is going to make a huge hole in the wallet, literally, and it will probably make a huge huge hole in the wall when you eat the phone at the wall, and you know you create a crater at the wall when the phone impacts, because losing this can be quite frustrating. It's expensive as hell. It's also very expensive to manufacture. One of the most expensive blueprints I've ever seen. I've been told like 40 to 80 billion ISK to reverse engineer the blueprint with all the materials. I think I've been told like 45 billion just for the blueprint with good skills. Again, if I'm wrong on this, feel free to correct me. I've heard so many different numbers. I'm just taking the average number out of the numbers that I've heard. You know, just to have the lowest possible mistake, you know, and that make, you know, the price of the materials that you have to build the ship. I think it also utilizes the new materials, the new gas that was added. Also quite expensive. So once the boxes go away, industry will definitely be in a much better spot. Currently the boxes do kinda troll the industry, because you can just get the ship from the box, which again I don't like the box idea. but the boxes will eventually go away, so you'll be able to manufacture the ships in a classic way, and then the price of the ship will go up. Now, how much will this ship cost when the price goes up? I've been thinking about that for a while now, for a couple days. It's actually one of the reasons why it took me so long to record this video, because I was trying to figure out how all the things work. Now, my estimate on how much this thing will cost when the boxes go away, since currently it's like 44 billion average, I would say maybe 80 to 150 billion. That's what I expect the price on this thing to be. It will go up and down, it will vary. Perhaps it will be lower, perhaps it will be higher, but that's what I personally expect. Not because, well, actually, the estimate on that is based on a lot of factors. The fact that it can enter high sec, the fact that it's a unique ship, it's a faction carrier, has unique modules, it has some new materials, it has an expensive blueprint, all that. When you combine all that, that's basically how I came up with that estimate. Again, could be right, could be wrong. I'm very interested to see how accurate my estimate will be. So far, my estimate on the faction crew has been pretty accurate. I said that they'll be about 3 billion. They're currently 1.5 billion, but when the boxes go away, the price will skyrocket, so they'll be a lot more expensive again. It's a roller coaster. I admit, sometimes hard to keep track of what's happening. And with Super Capitals around the corner, I'll be busy recording a lot of stuff. And I don't know. And you might be asking me, well, when are the Super Capitals coming out? I'm recording this on the 31st. No, not the 31st. May 30th. So maybe we're looking at Super Capitals, at Super Carriers, next week or the week after, or the third quarter of June. That's my rough estimate. That's what I expect. I mean, they already shown us the graphs of the Super Capitals, and no, Super Capitals are not going to be able to enter low sec. They are not even going to be able to dock in classic NPC stations because they're just huge ships. They're larger than stations. You can't fit those things in normal stations. They will require you to have a Keepstar and a upgraded Citadel or a Outpost also upgraded. So if you lose the Outpost or Keepstar or Citadel, you are in trouble, because that ship can't dock in NPC stations, and if you can't dock anywhere, yeah, I would be a bit worried. And that's why I am not going to be flying the Super Capitals on the live server, but as promised, as I always do, I will be showing you the builds, different ideas, tactics, and I'll be doing some Super Capital versus Super Capital when that happens, when that time comes. So you can definitely expect to see some Super Capital builds and fitting videos when they are released. Kinda excited for that, because I also plan to do Titan versus Titan. I was waiting for that for so long, actually. That's going to be some very beautiful explosions. I can promise you that it's going to be some beautiful explosions. Big ships make big beautiful explosions. Never forget that. Okay, well, back to the CyanSea carrier or the CyanSea carrier. No, I actually call this a Cina carrier. A Cina carrier based like Cinnaball, Cina carrier. That's basically how I pulled out the name. It's not accurate, I know. It's Cyan carrier, CyanSea, but for simple purposes, just it slipped out once, slipped out twice, slipped out 3 times, and it just stick with the Cina carrier. So this is a Cina carrier. It actually performs really good. Honestly, kinda impressed by the DPS. And you might be wondering, well, why are you impressed by 6,000 DPS on a carrier? I have no skills. That's why. Now, right now, if you have the bombard implant, bombard tactics, that one is going to be nasty on this thing. Now I know it's expensive to use, but in PvP, in low sec, I would actually feel pretty safe in low sec if I were to have a high level drone bomb implant on this thing, with a build that's balanced between DPS and tank. The most important thing would be to have fast fighters, just so that you can yeet that tackle interceptor or frigate that decides to tackle you. And again, with drone bombs you can easily do that. I mean, even without the drone bombs you can easily delete a frigate off grid. I mean, no frigate can tank 6000 DPS, so yeah, just send the fighters, have like 2 micro warp drive guides, they'll reach the target and they'll kill the target in like a second. So tackling a carrier is definitely a bit risky with a frigate. However, heavy tackle ships can definitely be problematic. There are ships that can tank the DPS, and my advice, if you want to tackle one of these ships, tackle it with a heavy tackle, something that has a lot of scramblers and a lot of tank, just in case if the Sinai carrier has a lot of DPS, good skills, and a bombard tactic implant. You want the tackle to live as long as possible for the main fleet to land in order to deliver maximum DPS on it. So that's how I would approach tackling this ship. Now, as for surviving in this thing, well, just don't go in low sec. If you're in low sec, have scouts everywhere. Treat this ship as you would treat, let's say, a Astarte or Vazago or you know, any other faction carrier, because this is a faction carrier, and as such, it is going to be a big juicy targets in the eyes of pirates. I know I want to blow up someone. I know I want to blow up someone's faction carrier. So yeah, take the advice from a pirate that knows what they're talking about. If I get my hands on all these ships, and if I get to shoot at it, it's going to be killed, because I have ships that are built to deal with ships like that. So this is wave number, I actually have no idea what wave this is, but this is a classic laboratory mission, and as a classic laboratory mission, it does count as a storyline mission, because it is quite difficult, can be quite dangerous, and I have no skills, so I must keep my distance, must keep range, and must not let any of these ships get close. I mean, even if they get close, the problematic ships are the small ones that have webs, scramblers. I kill them first, and then I proceed to kill the larger targets. But so far, it hasn't been a issue at all. Now I'm kind of surprised that I have received a laboratory mission in high sec. I'll definitely keep this system on my watch. This is actually recorded very close to my old home system, which was Inara. If you have been following me for like 3 years, you know that I used to be based in Inara. It was my high sec home. That was basically before I joined MUG, and right at the start of the game, this was my home base. And I still have some of the old chips here. I still have the old modules. Very nostalgic to actually come back to where it all started, you know. I used to be here with the RB, used to be here with a lot of other ships, and this place is really very important to me, because this is where I started to play the game, basically. And couple months after, I moved to CyanSea, and you know what? I actually planned to do like a story video, basically my journey in the game from start to the present, just so one day when I decide to remember the good old days of Eve, so that I can just go and watch that, and then any other pilot as well who was interested in the history of the game and in the history of of my journey here in this game. Because when I think about it, I have done so much from start to present. It was honestly a awesome journey so far. Truly, I have to say, like, the game was really fun so far, and it still is fun. It has its flaws, obviously. There are things that I don't like, of course. There are things that can be improved, and that's just, you know, part of any game. Honestly, any game, every game has its ups and downs. Any other game also has flaws. No game is perfect. So the journey, I think the journey was definitely very fun so far. And every time I get like angry at something, or you know, when I have a bad day, I just look at the start, when I started, how I started the game, and I just look at the whole path, the whole road, and I don't know, I just get that nostalgic feeling, you know. The feeling that, you know, one day, like 10, 20 years from now on, when I come back to this, and when I look back at like the PvP we did, at the fights we did, at the chats, of course, the salt and all that, I think it will be like I think I'll have a fulfilling. I think I'll probably be quite satisfied with the outcome in the end. I mean, basically no regrets, you know. Have fun while it lasts, as they say. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to have as much fun as possible, so that I have no regrets when the game eventually goes away. I mean, every game goes away, but let's not go there. The game is still far from going anywhere in terms of shutting down. So yeah, but one day in the far future is going to be a awesome movie that you can basically watch. Would be interesting, honestly. But as they say, Eve is, I don't know, immortal. So I would say that this game, I feel like Eve will be here even like 20 years from now on. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. Anyway, back to this interesting carrier. So this is the last wave, I believe. 28 ships, 25 ships were on the field, and I of course picked off the smaller ones first, and then I go after the large ones. Just, you know, mostly because my skills, I don't trust my skills. Like, I feel literally naked flying ships without skills. And again, do not fly ships that you don't have skills for. I am recording the ship just to show you what it can do with basically no skills right now. But it is not something that I recommend that players do. Don't fly ships with no skills. And I repeat myself multiple times because, you know, I want to be clear. Just don't fly ships with no skills. Might be forgiving on this ship for some reason, but other ships might not be so forgiving, especially faction ships. And speaking of faction ships, someone asked me about faction dreadnoughts and what type of skills we can expect for them. Now, I'm not really sure what exactly to expect from the skill requirements for the faction dreadnoughts, but my honest guess here is that they will require you to have expert skills. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the case, because we also have the super capsules, and I'm fairly sure the super capsules will definitely require the expert capsule skills. I am 80% sure, 85% sure that they will require expert skills. And if they require expert skills, then I believe the faction dreadnoughts will require the normal advanced skills. But that's still, you know, up to debate. We have no idea what the skill requirements are. We have no idea what bonuses there are. We have literally no idea what to expect. We basically had like those small graphs that the developers showed us, and that's basically like all that they did show us. That all of the super carriers will be unique, and they will all have special modes, traits, and things like that. And yes, I know, the other question that I'll be asked is faction super carriers. Well, we have faction carriers, so yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious. At one point, we will get faction super carriers. And yes, at one point, we will probably get the faction titans, like the Moloch, what was the Gurista pirates called? The Gurista pirate titan, Komodo. Yeah, that's right, Komodo, like the Komodo dragon, but it's just a Komodo, and there are some others as well, which again are going to be ridiculously expensive ships. And at one point in the future, I mean, it's obviously they will add them at one point, so it's no secret. They'll add special ships, they will add special frigates, special edition frigates, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, battlecruisers, dreadnoughts, titans, everything. They'll be adding that to the game, one after the other. I don't like the way that they're adding them, but I know that they'll add them. I mean, they already added a bunch of ships, like 8 ships in a week, literally, and 4 more are coming. So yeah, quite the release schedule lately. Huge updates, huge updates. I expect the anniversary update to be massive as well. That might be the second biggest update in this year. The previous update that we had with the new ships was also pretty massive. The biggest to date, to be accurate. The next one might be here and there, might be big, but the anniversary update will be massive. not just because of the super capsules. The pun wasn't intended in this case, but they will be adding a lot of stuff. So that's going to be fun to check out, I guess. And well, the last 4 ships of the mission here. Honestly, the time flew. Time for me flew so quickly I haven't even noticed how fast it was. Honestly, despite its weird appearance, I'm not really. I mean, the model is good. It looks good. It's highly detailed. The graphics are definitely on spot. But I don't know. If you drop this ship in the ocean, it will float. That's all I'll say. It's basically like a aircraft carrier. And I know a lot of players don't really like the design of it. It looks a bit weird, and yes, it does look a bit weird. But I've heard that they might change it. They might change the design, and we will see what they'll do about that. I mean, that's what I heard. So might be true, might be false, but we will find out eventually. In any case, the DPS on this thing is okay, pretty good actually. Definitely going to be really fun for this job here. The tank can be amazing. Of course, it's a capital, 8 low slots. You can slap a lot of tank batteries. You can fit it literally the way you like, and it will definitely be quite tanky. Surprisingly, its speed is not that bad. It's not the fastest, but not the slowest. It has a bonus on warp speed, so it does warp up and down a bit faster than the other carriers. But again, it's not something really impressive. A battleship will still be faster, much faster than this boat. But for its uniqueness and for its good performance, I have to say that I did enjoy flying it, as I mentioned on the start of the video. A very interesting ship that is, I don't know, it's still a bit weird, but I really cannot complain about the experience that I had with it so far. It is a very unique boat that has its own unique place in the game, I would say. Definitely something that I have to think about a bit more, I guess. If I decide to go and skill into this ship,
engaged.
then I have to make sure that I don't regret that decision. So, with that being said, hope that you guys have enjoyed this little run with the CyanSea carrier. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. It does help a lot. Next Friday, I'll be live streaming. I'll be flying the ship for a couple hours. So if you want to join me, feel free to join me. I think it will be fun. You can bring a salvaging ship. You can bring a combat ship. Scan me down and basically join me at running the missions. I think it will be. I think it could be quite fun. So with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.